Hey, it's Alan here.
And Bree. And
we
we
are
are the hunter and the hippie.
Connected through yoga and bonded by our love of the wild places and the love for outdoors, we've come together to share our conversations about life.
Well, maybe more so what we've learned or are continuing to learn about life.
And there's no one way to do it. Life, that is.
And hopefully provide you with some teeny tiny bits of inspiration to connect deeper with yourself, others, and our great Mother Earth.
All right. Enough already about the podcast. Let's just get to the podcast. How's it going, Bree?
Oh, hey.
I am so excited to talk to you. I feel like it's been forever since we've talked.
But it hasn't.
Really hasn't. It hasn't. It was like last week.
Was it last week? Or maybe we just listened to ourselves last week.
Maybe that's it.
Well, no, actually it was a fry. I think it was like, it wasn't quite 2 weeks. It was like a week and some change. So, yeah, okay. There we go.
It feels like forever. I love talking to you. So
just a lifetime, you know. Every day exactly. Is a lifetime.
Yes. So featuring, for those on video, featuring my new side table plant. Thanks to my lovely wife. My wife has gone plant crazy. I love it, but there are plants. I truly believe we're gonna have our own ecosystem in our house soon.
Nice.
There's gonna be like clouds at the ceiling level, and we're going to start getting precipitation, but
that just means you need to get a garden tower.
Yes, I saw yours. Yours is looking amazing.
Oh, it's flourishing.
It starts out as nothing, right? Like you don't get like plants, you get like pods, right? Or does it start out with like leaves? You
get seedlings. So they come in a package in the mail, which is, I don't know. I still have to think about that. I'm trying right now to grow seeds straight from one of their pods. But yeah, you'll get it with like just the smallest little sprout coming out. A lot of it, you can't tell what it is. So it's all labeled. So you know.
Got it.
And then they recommend which level of your garden tower to put it on based on what's growing. So like my tomatoes and peppers and zucchini are on the bottom level. They'll say which one should be top level or anywhere, and yeah. So what does the levels matter? How much light and water it gets, or no? I think predominantly like tomatoes are going to be heavy, so they're gonna. And typically they grow on a trellis, but in this situation they're just gonna grow down.
And like land to the floor and then grow on the floor type of thing, or
no, they'll just hang.
No. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So that I actually have a friend with a greenhouse, and he grows all of his tomatoes he has a bucket hanging from the ceiling and a hole in the bottom of the bucket. So all of his tomatoes just grow down. And that's just a way you don't need to have a trellis. So this is the same concept in this garden tower, is that they're surprisingly, I mean, no tomatoes on them yet. They're still like pretty big and growing towards the light. But I know once they get a tomato, that heaviness will start to bring them down. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Cool.
I know.
I'm excited to see it. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it's starting to get full. I mean, you're making a lot of progress.
I think this week I'll harvest some of my lettuces. I did take some leaves off for a salad the other day. I harvested some of my bunching onions, but I'll pull like some full heads of lettuce, which grew in, a month? No, less than a month.
That's
like
incredible.
A full head of lettuce. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And this is year-round growing. Like,
yes.
You're talking like middle of winter. You're growing shit.
Yeah, that's because incredible. The LED lights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, one step closer to
my
vision.
Now, how much can it, like, I wonder, like, do you need more than one tower for like a family of like 4, or like is this going to feed just you, or are you gonna have to give some away? Like, is one tower, like, do they tell you like, oh, this will feed 2 people for X amount? Or
Yeah, when I put in you can take a little test on their, or like quiz it's on Lettuce Grow. And I actually put in that it's for 2 people who rarely dine out and eat a lot of greens. And so they suggested 30 pods. The biggest you can do is 36 pods. And I just figured I'm going to do that. I didn't realize it was so easy to expand, so maybe I would have done less, but whatever. I mean, I guess less shipping of the build out, but my idea is I get so many eggs from friends, and I was like, well, now I have something that I can swap with them and offer also to people who, like one of my good friends, she will check on them when I'm out of town. You only have to check it once a week, and you just check the pH, make sure there's still water circulating. And so that'll be me kind of thanking her, is just harvest whatever you want from it. And she watched them when they were little seedlings and I was gone for 2 weeks, and they weren't in their homes yet when I had to rig some lights to make them survive. So my first harvest is going to her and her husband.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So
that's great. That's a lot like, with hunting and meat, like you get a ton of meat. I mean, I could eat an entire elk myself.
Yeah.
Not, of course, in one sitting. But, I mean, I do get hungry, but maybe half an elk in one sitting.
Oh boy.
But what I think I got like after fully processed, ground and everything, I think I want to say I was like at 150 pounds of meat.
Yeah.
And I eat a lot of meat. I don't eat a lot of greens. I don't eat a lot of vegetables. It's funny, we were at a party yesterday, and I had on my plate, I had chicken, rice, and bread with butter, and the everything, the plate was just white. And 3 people made a comment to me. They're like, "You have 0 color on your plate," and I was like, "White's a color?"
White's the absence of color.
But yeah, so I eat a lot of meat, and I'm just digressing. I'm going down the rabbit hole of this, but getting an elk and getting 150 pounds of elk, I could totally polish off an elk in a year, because I probably eat about a pound of meat a day. And it's still great to share it. I enjoy the taste of elk meat. I love cooking it and eating it, but I love sharing it probably more. Especially I love cooking it for friends, while I'm with them. It's great to give it away, and then I've given it to a few people, and they'll send me pictures of it, and they've shared it with their families or their friends, and they love it. So it's cool that they get to experience that. A lot of people will listen to Rogan, and I just gave a friend some, and he shared it with his friend, and he's like, "I've never had elk meat," and I listen to Rogan, and it's the thing that Rogan listeners want is the elk meat, because that's what he talks about. So it was cool just to hear his story, his first time having elk meat, and I was able to provide that to him. And it's really cool to be able to share that. And if I ate a lot of greens, I would definitely swap with you some elk meat for some lettuce, but it's probably not gonna happen. I'll just give you some of my elk.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get my own elk, so I don't need your elk.
Fine. You're gonna be getting a lot of animals, and you're gonna be carrying them all out by yourself this year.
I have someone actually.
Oh, okay. Someone's coming to help.
Someone's taking some vacation days and is gonna come out into the Bighorns with me for elk. So I'll probably go out for 9 or 10 days, and cool. I have general deer, which is the same area as my elk. So,
awesome.
Yeah, over that same time period. So that'll be cool. So I'm very excited to have confirmed help, and then one of my antelope tags, I have a friend who had promised before I put in for it that he would help me with that area.
Awesome.
So It's all working out.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to take us through some
Breathing? Sure.
Some
If I
breathing.
can't stop itching my bud bites for a
From
moment.
your run,
Yes. All right.
from your run that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right, get to it.
So, finding your comfortable seat. If you are a little tired, you can lie down and give yourself that time to just take a break. If you're driving or walking, allow the eyes to soften. And first, just feel the impact of closing your eyes or softening the gaze. The impact of your mind stepping back. Of allowing distractions outside of you to melt away, to fade away, or to simply blur into the background. And just noticing how your body feels as you allow distractions to fade away. And maybe the mind continues to chatter. And just allow it. Allow it without getting involved. So stepping back and as an observer, as a witness to all that's happening. Allowing commentary and stories to dissipate. And just observing things as they are, whether that's thoughts or sensations. And then allow your exhale to slow down. Notice the added impact of slowing your exhale. Observing if there are any changes. Observing the quality of the mind, of the body, of the breath. And again, without labels, just witnessing it all as it is. And sensing or imagining this feeling of ease, of peace, of contentment. Feeling it melt over your whole body and being. Noticing that we have the power in our breath, in our narrative. And then when you feel ready, slowly fluttering your eyes open. we're back.
We're back. I always come back so much more relaxed.
Just a couple minutes.
It's amazing how powerful the breath is.
Couple minutes can go a long way.
Yep. Like you don't have to, we're gonna talk about a bunch of shit today, but right, you don't have to meditate for an hour, half an hour. Like if this is it, like if you meditate for 5 minutes a day, I don't know if we've talked about this in the past, but right, meditating for 5 minutes a day, focusing on your breath, bringing awareness to your breath, it's powerful. You will start to see and feel changes.
Or even like on the top of every hour, take 3 mindful breaths. Just imagine what you can do for your day if every hour you break it up with just 3 slow breaths. Kind of breaks up if you're in this kind of spiral of stress or whatever's going on. You have the opportunity to reset your entire day.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful, and I think more people need to focus on it and use it. Hopefully, our viewers get that message.
There's other week.
Right. There's a reason we do it on the show, right? Like how many other, I have a few regular podcasts that I try to listen to, and I've never had like a podcast like have me stop and breathe, and I love that. Maybe I'm biased about our show, but I love that we are trying to first off, right, we do and talk about the things that we live and own in our lives, including breathing and breath work. And we try to bring that to the show and share it with our listeners. So I think it's super powerful, right? Practicing what you preach and just sharing it with everyone out there.
Yeah.
So you took a light jog this weekend.
Casual jaunt.
Casual jaunt into the wilderness.
Yeah.
But before you go, I was like so stoked for you to do this. I'm like so happy. I can't wait to hear about it. So I want to say I'm proud of you, but I hope you're proud of yourself, right? And me being proud of you, right, gives you nothing other than the thought of knowing that I was thinking about you while you were running. But you made a post and you had your average time on there, and you were running like 15-minute miles up a mountain, right? Like up and down a mountain.
Not quite.
It said explain, because I'm like, wow, like to me, I saw 15-minute miles. I was like, fuck, that is fast, right? Like if you're talking about road running, right? If you're talking about road running, sure, that's not fast, right? Boston Marathon, top guys are 6-minute milers, right? That's not fast at all. But we're talking about running in the most desolate section of the United States in the lower 48, right? And you're running uphill. You're on dirt, right? It's dirt. It's a trail, like single track.
Yeah, so it was through the thoroughfare, which, like you said, is the most remote area in the lower 48, which means it's the furthest from any roads. So that's what they mean by remote. There is no way to get in and out of there except by trail. So why I say it wasn't really a mountain is my most vert was in the first 10.5 miles. So I went over a pass, and then once I get over the pass, I dropped into the thoroughfare. So I went from the South Fork of the Shoshone River, which is just outside of Cody, and that's how I accessed the thoroughfare, because you can't just there's no road that pulls up to the thoroughfare. So it ran 10.5 miles, and then when I crossed over the pass, I guess I technically enter the Bridger Teton Wilderness, which is where the thoroughfare starts. And then I finished out at Yellowstone Lake, So I crossed into the national park boundary and finished just the trailhead off the road on the east side of Yellowstone Lake.
So point to point, you're not running back then.
No. So that's really the biggest. When I was thinking about it leading up to it, and I was like, basically when I'm 20 miles in, it's going to be easier to finish the 40 miles than it would be to go back, because the pass is just a pain in the butt. So the rest is like really, it's rolling. It's not a ton of elevation. So to the pass, it's about 4,000 feet and maybe a little more.
Oh, just 4,000 feet.
But over 10 and a half miles, which isn't like that crazy. I mean, it's definitely steep.
That's steep. To us, that might not be that steep. That's fucking steep. Like, that's steep. 4,000 miles?
4,000 miles.
4,000 miles. 4,000 feet over a 10-mile stretch. That's on foot. On foot, that is steep. Right? Like, give yourself some credit. Right? That is steep. I was waiting for you to say like 2,000 feet. Then I would have been like, yeah, sure. I guess that's nothing over 10 miles. That's basically flat, right? No, like 4,000 feet over 10 miles. You're climbing a mountain.
Yeah, but then it's like 50 miles and over 50 miles, it was only like 2,500 feet.
All right. You're still going uphill, but.
So it was like, and that's the reason I did it in that direction, was I thought I'll get all the vert out right away. Mm-hmm. And it's this very slow decline from there. It's like steep right over the pass, and then it's kind of slow, and then rollers. And that was, I'm like, I would hate to do it the other way. I would hate to go, have to hit the pass
at the end
at mile 50.
Yeah.
That sounds
rough.
Really rough. And then leading up to it, instead of it just being this brutal short climb, it would be this kind of deceptive slow incline climb.
Yes.
Which is just kills me. Because you're like, I should be able to run this. Why can't I run it? And it's like, well, it's slowly going uphill for miles.
Right. So, and just to give, right, like, I don't necessarily know all of our listeners if they understand, like, what a pass is. So, right, like, do you want to explain a pass? Or
you can explain a pass.
All right. So really just a pass, right? Like, think of it, like, if you've ever driven in the mountains, right, there's usually a going up to a peak-ish, right? Peak-ish, right, section, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be like the very peak of a mountain. And then on the opposite side, you start going back down it, right? So, right, you are passing over the tallest point of that area.
Or that would be like the low point between peaks typically. So usually the pass is like a saddle. You have like two higher points and it's a little bit lower in between them.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this case, right, you went up, right? You went up 4,000 feet, and then you came back down on the other side of it, and then to come back up again, right? To go back up into.
No.
It's only how much did you come down? Did you drop 4,000 feet again?
I dropped about, I don't know how much specifically, but the elevation in Yellowstone is actually higher than where I started at. Okay. So I went up, say I started at 5,000, well, I guess a little, like 6,000 feet. I went up to a little over 10,000 feet. And then I think Yellowstone Lake is a little bit higher. Maybe it's at like 7,000 or something like that. So I didn't have to go back up it wasn't like I had to go back over a ridge line or anything like that. It was just this.
Got it.
And I don't know the exact history of the thoroughfare, but it was a place that back in the day they traveled. That's where the idea of like thoroughfare came. There was like kind of horse it's a lot of, even now, it's predominantly traveled by horse packers. Again, because...
Is there hunting that go in there?
Mm-hmm, you can hunt back there.
Yeah.
All by horse, though, just because of you're not going to get in there. It's 12 miles to drop to the other side of the pass, so you're not going to pack that out if you get an elk, unless you have horses. Mm-hmm. So it's I think it's a lot of actual like out-of-towners who get outfitters to take them out there.
I was going to say paying guides to get them out there.
Yeah, there's like an outfitters camp and back there. But it's also, I mean, the big draw was that it's not really traveled by foot very often. People backpack it, but it's mainly, again, horse packing that goes back there just because of the like vastness of that wilderness.
All right, so you ran 60 miles? What was the total?
62.7.
62.7 miles.
Yeah.
Tell me exactly how many people did you see?
I did not see anybody.
That is incredible.
So
not
my
a single
friend,
soul. Not at the like when you got to the parking lot. Was there anyone there?
Yeah, my friends. Well, my friend.
Was there anyone there you didn't know that wasn't waiting for you?
There were. I mean, it's Yellowstone, so there's a lot of people who. There's actually apparently. Well, we ended up seeing it. Was a bison just outside the parking lot, and so all these people. My friends who were waiting for me were like, all these cars keep coming in and like looking at something. And then we look over there and there's a bison and they're like, cool. We've been sitting here not even knowing this. And we just keep seeing cars pull in, stop and like look at something and drive out, and which is hilarious.
That is funny.
Yeah. Cause it's the first access to Yellowstone Lake from the east entrance. Okay. So interesting enough, there were horse trailers in the parking lot, but I don't know where those people were. They were either at their camp already or had turned off that main like thoroughfare trail. But yeah, my friend Janie ran with me to the pass because they started at 4 a.m. And it's, a very high concentration of grizzlies in that area. And just for safety purposes, I figured in the dark and during like morning feeding hours, it would be wise to have someone with me. So she lives out near there. So she ran with me or hiked. I mean, it's when you're doing that kind of vert and you have many miles after, you're not really running unless it's flat or downhill. But yeah, so she hiked to the top of the pass and then she turned around and she had a solid 21-mile day herself.
Wow.
But yeah, we got to the pass and then had to decide I was going to do it. And she turned around and I went into the thoroughfare.
That's incredible. And so did you run into any grizzlies?
I did not. I saw
see any in a distance or no?
No, I didn't. No, I mean, I'm not like, I think it's really, you have to stop. And like when we were backpacking there the other weekend, my friend brought his spotting scope and he sat up on a ridge and just watched, it's like we watched them from camp, just along that pass. But if you're like moving, you're not like sitting and taking the time to see if that's a rock or a bear. So this time of the year, they are up high eating moths and flipping rocks. And that was part of the timing, was like knowing they wouldn't be down by the trail. There were plenty of tracks, plenty of scat, plenty of wolf scat, actually, quite a bit once I got into Yellowstone. There was only like one time that I freaked out a little bit. And it was in Yellowstone along the lake in like heavy trees. I like thought I heard something like kind of thumping on a tree. And I just like yelled really loud and just kept running. I like definitely freaked out a little bit. Because there was more, there were more tracks at that point as well on the trail.
In Yellowstone.
Yeah, in Yellowstone. Yeah. Because it's I mean, that is the highest concentration of grizzlies, I think, in the lower 48 as well. That would be the southeast corner of Yellowstone, where I was.
Well, it's remote, one, right? So, right, you have often no one is there. And, you're in a national park, so you don't have hunters at all, right? Like maybe your hunters are coming through, right? They have to come through Yellowstone. It sounds like they pack in.
No, they would pack in from the South Fork, from where I went in.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So they'd pack in from the trailhead I went. So
that section of Yellowstone is pretty much untouched, except for the crazy people like you who are running it. But yeah, like, so that it's just, that's their ideal location. Right? Why wouldn't they want to be there?
Yeah. So
they don't have to worry about gunshots and people in general. And
yeah, but I think the grizzlies here in general they're not afraid of humans because they're not hunted. Like in Alaska, they know that they can. Yeah. So I think they're a little more frisky. Yeah, it was great. My mom decided to send me articles about all of the recent bear attacks.
Oh my gosh.
2 days before or maybe the day before I go out there. Love you, Mom.
Mom, what were you doing?
And here's the thing. Like, I think it's just making educated, having like educated risk, I guess you could say. The thing is, I run in grizzly area, I ran in grizzly area all last summer, and not that it can't happen. It could happen on a 5-mile run out there, and
right.
Granted, spending that much time out there increases the risk. But grizzlies don't want to attack us. It's just if they're surprised or protecting their cubs. And so that's where, I don't actually own a bear bell, but I borrowed my friend's bear bell. So I had a bear bell the whole time. And I'm just yelling, when I'm going into heavy wooded areas, when I'm transitioning around blind spots or coming up over a hill that I can't see, I'm making noise and just being aware. If I see fresh tracks, I'll probably start I would make more noise than if they seem to be dried up. But all I saw was a porcupine and a deer.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I don't think I've ever seen a porcupine.
Oh, I've seen so many out here.
we did see a porcupine. Where was it that we saw that?
Wyoming, probably.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we saw some. Yeah.
Last fall when I went out hunting, went out with my friend who was hunting, we came across 2 porcupines, maybe more than 2 porcupines. Yeah.
And you only saw one deer? Mule deers are dumb. They're usually really easy to find.
Just one deer.
Yeah, and they don't run either. They're crazy. Mule deers are interesting.
Yeah, but we did see on our drive out from the trailhead, our drive out of Yellowstone, maybe 10 minutes up the road, there was a grizzly on the side of the road, literally 4 feet from the car.
Really? Big one?
Kind of small.
Small, yeah.
But I was like, we were joking. I saw more wildlife on my drive out of Yellowstone than I did in 62 miles.
Running through it.
Yeah. So, yeah. But more animals than people, so that's pretty special. Porcupine and a deer. No humans.
That's great. I mean, that's an awesome opportunity to get away and get in touch with nature, and I imagine the conversations you have with yourself are pretty enlightening too.
Yeah, it's just grinding.
Yeah.
It was pretty. There was a lot of water crossings, and so after I brought a spare pair of socks. And I knew there was a stretch where I had like 5 water crossings in a row. So I waited till after that, swapped out my socks. And then the trail's not very traveled, especially this early in the season. So it's not groomed. So there's a lot of timber across the trail. It's overgrown. Like a lot of the grass in some areas, it grows over and you can't really tell where it is. And then a lot of the parts of the trail are submerged underwater. So I had a junction where I got off trail because it was underwater for part of it. And then I just followed that, not realizing it wasn't the trail anymore. And I ended up in these super thick willows, which is the bane of my existence. I had a very bad experience with them when I did the Wind River High Route out in just outside of Lander and DuBois. So it like kind of was like a flashback. And so I'm in these willows that like go from like waist high to shoulder high to over my head, and they're super thick. And then the ground gets muckier and muckier, and literally I was like mid-thigh deep in water in willows, trying to get back to the trail, like trying to get out of the willows so I could even find the trail. And just like I should have put my sunglasses on because I was like, I'm going to get a willow in the eye, but I just kept kind of like pulling it side to side and like going the direction I knew the trail was in at that point. And I got out of there and I swapped my socks because now it's not just water. There's like dirt and all of that. Swap my socks, and less than 10 minutes later, I'm in another river crossing. So I just was like, I'm not changing my socks anymore. So I ran 30 miles with wet feet, which was
good for you.
That was those were the moment. You know, it's funny. Like, yeah, my legs were tired for sure. But it's those little things that were pretty. Those were like the extra challenge, right? Like those mental, like wet feet, constantly trying to figure out, well, not constantly, but some key points of trying to stay on trail and not knowing when you do a river crossing, like where's the trail on the other side, and having to find that. And and the other rough part was the bug stress. The middle of it was heavy black flies. So just getting bit by black flies. And then the last 15 miles were along the lake. They are up high from the lake, so you weren't down low. And it was just mosquitoes. Like, why? Like, I could not stop at all.
Did you use bug spray or no?
I forgot my bug wipes. So, like, weight is obviously a big factor when you're doing that kind of mileage. And food is going to be your predominant weight. So anything you can ditch, you ditch. And I packed the day before because I was staying at my friend's near the trailhead. And I have mosquito wipes. And that was my plan because I'm not taking a whole bottle of bug spray. And I forgot them. And
that sucks.
So.
And you paid.
I paid the price.
And now you can't stop itching.
I know. It's getting a lot better. But my legs look wrecked. Like they're a total. I have this like, I thought it was dirt, and it was partially dirt. And I took a shower and I like was scrubbing, and I was like, that burns. It's
You're
just
scrubbing the skin off.
It's basically an abrasion from the willows.
Oh.
For those on video, actually, I can show.
Yeah, let's see it. Oh, damn! Holy shit!
Yeah.
Whoa, that's gnarly.
So, like, on both insides of my calves, it was just like, it literally, I mean, it was coated with dirt, but on top, like, underneath it is just like an abrasion, essentially, and then scratches everywhere and bug bites everywhere, and yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So I actually chose this shirt intentionally knowing what we were going to talk about. So for those that aren't on video, I'm wearing a shirt, and all it says on it is "Suffer More." And I love it. I love that you suffered. I do. And I love hearing the story because nothing goes as planned ever. right? And I truly believe if you become better at suffering, right? If you know how to suffer, you are going to be amazing in this life, right? But if you don't know how to suffer, like if you can't just deal with the littlest thing, right? Life is gonna be hard, right? Life's already going to be, right, quote, hard. But if you're okay with, yeah, you're fucking thigh deep in water, right, getting smacked in the face with willows, and that's not, that's not where you're supposed to be, right? And here's the thing, like I kept thinking about, is you don't get to go back to your car, right? Like you said, right? You get 20 miles in, it is now quicker for you to finish this run, right, than it is to go back, right? So it is quicker to run 40 additional miles than it is to run 20 miles. And that sounds crazy, right? So I don't know if everyone's hearing exactly what you're saying, right? You're saying it, but I don't know if people are computing, right? Like, yeah, she had to run, right? Like she's in these willows, she's doing these river crossings, she has wet feet, she has wet socks, and she's still running. And she doesn't get to, oh, let me just, pull another pair of socks out of nowhere. Right? She has one pair of socks, change, right? So 2 pairs of socks, right? So there's something to that, right? That says a lot about who you are as a person, and what you're capable of dealing with. And I think that, in our lives, in our first world problem lives, I know I do a lot of the things that I do because I want to suffer. Like my shirt, it says suffer more because I want to suffer. I want to be in the shit, right? And when I'm there, sometimes I'm like, oh, this sucks and I don't want to be here, and oh, this is miserable. But in most times when I look back at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so glad I dealt with that. And because it makes you stronger, right? And it makes you ready. One of the things I talk about in my yoga classes is this isn't fucking yoga. Like, you think this is yoga? Like, you think you showing up into a freaking climate controlled room with 4 walls and a roof over your head, you think this is fucking yoga? Like, that's not a fucking yoga, right? Like, yeah, we're doing yoga poses, right? We're practicing for when yoga happens. We're practicing for when life happens, right? I just had my first in-person yoga class, and everyone was I had the heat turned up a little bit, and I don't do hot yoga, right? We've talked about this. I don't teach hot yoga. I don't do hot yoga, but I definitely teach warm yoga. It is definitely warm in the room. And at one point I was sweating, and I'm the teacher. I shouldn't be sweating. And I looked at everyone, I was like, it's fucking hot in here. And I was like, God, it sucks to be you guys. Right? Like, I didn't change it, right? It just sucks to be you. Like, that's right. Like, that still isn't yoga. That's just preparing you for when, right? Because how you're going to deal in that moment, right? Whether you knew I was going to have that class hot as hell or not, right? Like, how you deal with it in that moment is you're starting to prepare yourself for dealing with the shit in life. Right? You're starting to deal with getting lost on the trail, right? I have another friend who's a ultra trail runner, and she messaged me one day, told me a story. She's like, oh my God, she's like, I was running on a trail, I tripped, and my face was literally inches from horse shit. And she's like, all I can think of is you telling me to just stand the fuck up and smile, right? Like, because yeah, you can cry, your knees are skinned, right? Like, whatever, right? Like, you can be throw yourself a pity party in that moment, or you can toughen the fuck up and deal with it and realize that, like, no one's coming to save you. Like, no one's coming to save you, Brie. Like, I bet you were quicker in getting yourself out of there than if search and rescue had to come get you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I also
right?
am like nothing. I didn't break like.
Right, but still, like, you could have just mentally given up and not been, right, not had that fortitude, not had that passion in doing it, right?
Yeah.
And you were prepared to get your own self out of there because no one's coming to save you. And that's life, right? Like, no one's coming to save you, whether you're on this trail or you're in the middle of New York City. no one's coming to save you.
Well, and I think the big thing is, like, especially, I thought about this a couple years ago, with trail running versus road running is, like, you can't, like, call an Uber to pick you up if you're tired or you fell or whatever it might be. Like, you have to get yourself out. And it's just this idea that you put yourself in a situation where there are no options. And if we only took that into our, like, into our everyday lives, like, unfortunately we have a lot of options, and there's that idea of, like, paradox of choice, which I think really plagues a lot of people from even making decisions. And it's like, what if you just looked at it as, like, what would you do if there were no options? And this is kind of like a landmark thing, because it's that idea of putting the power back in your hands. It's because when I broke my back, I could say I didn't choose to break my back, but by choosing to break my back, like, I got the power back into my hands. And so that's what happens, is a lot of times in life we have options and we get to choose, but there's times where life throws crap at you. And we both, like, follow stoicism. And so it's that idea of voluntary discomfort, right? And voluntary discomfort is simply to not only see what, like, the edges of your comfort zone and expand those edges to see what you're capable of, but it's also to prepare you for life's discomforts that you didn't, quote unquote, choose, right? Like, that's crap's gonna happen, and the more that you're comfortable in the thick of it, the easier it'll be to move through it.
Yeah.
And the more confident
100%.
you are in yourself, right? Like, we are, like, I think that's the biggest thing, is, like, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We are far more capable than we test ourselves to be and believe ourselves to be. And so maybe it's doing those things so that you can, like, believe in yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way you said that. And it just makes me go immediately to jiu-jitsu, because what you're doing is if you're really trying to learn, is you are putting yourself in very uncomfortable situations. And you are, like, you're trying to figure out how to get out, and you have to build that confidence. And now, right, like, I'm very early on in my jiu-jitsu journey, so, like, I can't even speak to, like, a high level of it, but you put me in a bad situation and I'm relaxed, right? Because I know that freaking out and, right, not breathing and all of these other things that we would normally do is bad for the situation. So I love the way that you said that. And yeah, like we need to put ourselves into these situations more, so that when it's involuntary, we're just like, eh. And I've noticed that, like, as I've had to deal with harder things in life, now versus when I was younger, I am less disturbed by them. Like, they just come at me and I'm like, oh, cool, I got this. Like, I'm prepared for this, even though I've never experienced it. I've never, right? Like, it's not about, like, going through that exact same thing, but when you realize that, oh, I can handle this, whatever it is, because I've dealt with worse, right? Like, when you're like, oh, I've dealt with worse, right? How bad can it be? And also, sorry, my mind's going a million miles a minute right now just with this conversation. You sent me something. I don't know if it's the same guy, but then I just listened to, and it relates back to Stoicism, but I just listened to, what's his name? Sadhguru. I don't, he's like this older Indian guy, and, he's wise. He's wise beyond his years, and I just listened to him talk yesterday for like 23 minutes. And, it's when you start to realize that you're mortal, is when you start to give up control of things. Like, it's just easier to go with the flow, right? It's easier when you realize that you've come into this life with nothing and you're going to leave with nothing, then nothing matters. And it's not about, right, nothing mattering. It's just about if you can't take anything away from me, you're not going to upset me. Right? So if I know I came with nothing and I know I'm leaving with nothing, that means I have nothing. So if you can't take nothing away from me, so therefore, how can you impact me? And so, yeah, it hit home, and I feel like it relates to this in the sense, like, you're just going to deal with it, and you're just going to keep moving, and you're going to keep going forward. And when you know that you can die at any time, it's like, oh yeah, I could get eaten by a grizzly. Thanks, Mom. And if that's how it's meant to be, I think that's how it's going to be. And well, I think that would be a terrible death.
Having a car accident.
Yeah, right.
That's really bad. I shouldn't even put that in the universe. I'm also like, here's the hippie in me. Like, I actually believe we all have a predetermined day. So I was like, if I was meant to go to a grizzly that day, then if I wasn't out there, it would happen a different way. But I think and I'm much better with it now, but I've never had a fear of death, right? Because once you're dead, but after my climbing accident, I had a lot of fear around a debilitating accident that would put me in a place where I couldn't do the things I love, which was also like an important practice, right? Is when we get so deeply identified with our doings, and our doings are the things that make us happy, and not to say don't do the things that make you happy. Like, yes, like I'm not going to stop running because I don't want to be dependent on it, but I have to see if I'm becoming deeply identified with, again, these activities, and could I be content without them? And so that's what's so interesting, is like death versus, right, taking away your quote unquote livelihood are two very, like, so if I went to died to a grizzly, like, I'd be more sorry for, everyone who is going to actually feel the repercussions of that,
Right. One of the things he said in the video with that is, if you're afraid to die, you're still going to die, but you never live. Right? Like, I'm afraid to your running example. Oh, I'm afraid to get eaten by a grizzly and die, so I'm never going to go on this run. So you're still going to die, but you never actually lived either. Yeah. Right? So, I think that's an interesting dichotomy, right? That we're, when I can't say that I'm not afraid to die, because like when I fly, I've shared this before, I'm a terrible flyer. And when I fly, I'm always like, like, please don't, like, I don't want to go out like this. Like, so I'm afraid to die in that sense. Yeah. But yeah, like, I never want to be like, oh, I'm afraid to do this because I might die. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So, we're in our summer format, right? We're gonna, what is it? It's been an hour, right? Close to an hour?
Close to, not quite.
Close to an hour, so we can move to journal prompts, unless you have something else to share with your run.
No, I mean, I would just tell people, like, voluntary discomfort doesn't have to be a 62-mile run. It could be, I used to talk about this in my yoga classes, and when I would have that theme of Like it could be just saying yes to a social gathering you would normally say no to, or talking to a stranger, anything that gives you like that kind of that fear, right? Like we're talking about fear of death or whatever it might be. Anything that you get those physiological feelings of fear, like do those things, right? And allow yourself to see how resilient you are, how much courage you have inside of you. And I think that will help you with, if you have anxiety, if you have these certain emotions that really stop you from pursuing things, like practice voluntary discomfort. Like show yourself just how incredible you are, and it'll just carry that momentum.
Yeah. Walk towards your fear. Right? And it's not that we're not afraid, right? And if it's right, talking to a stranger or running 60 miles, whatever, and anything in between, it's not that we're not afraid. It's, you said it, right? It's having the courage, right? And that's not the absence of fear. It's knowing that I'm still afraid and I'm courageous enough to still go forward.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm courageous enough to still, okay, I'm afraid of this. I'm still going to do it. And I'm going to be that resilient human that I know I am, that I know I can be.
And that's, I think, the difference, right? Like people look at others who are courageous and they think they're confident, right? And that's not necessarily the case. And I always say, like, use courage when you don't have confidence. And the more that you use courage, the more your confidence will build. And this is coming from someone who's moved a lot, changed careers a lot. I've had to start over so many times, and people will say stuff and I'm like, well, it's because I've done it. And it's not like I go into these changes or starting new places or new things like super confident. It's just, I've used courage enough to be like, well, if everything gets pulled out from under me, like I know I can do it, because I've worked through that fear. And maybe not this situation, but so use your courage when you don't have confidence and see what can happen from there.
I love it. So I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm going to do a search for something because there's this quote that I love. I didn't want you to think I was picking up my phone and texting someone. There's this quote, and it embodies everything that you just said. It's in Tim Ferriss's Not Tools of Titans, Tribe of Mentors book. It's a quote on confidence, and I don't want to murder it because I've read it many times in my yoga classes. And I'm pretty sure it's by Estelle Millman. I hope I'm getting it right because I'm not going to spend a bunch of time looking for it. I'm not going to be able to find it quick.
Well, we could always put it in the show
in
notes,
the show notes,
the top of the show notes.
It's amazing because in a way I'm going to murder it is you're not going to be confident, especially if it's your first time doing this. Confidence doesn't magically appear, right? Like you don't just be like, oh yeah, I'm confident in this thing I have never done and I'm afraid of doing, right? You can't be confident in it. And you have to be courageous and just go forward, right? Confidence builds over time, right? This wasn't your first run, Bree, right? This wasn't your first river crossing. This wasn't your first time running in wet socks. This wasn't your first time in willows, clearly. Although you hope it's your last, but
it won't be.
Right? Like it won't be, right? It won't be. It will not be your last time, right? But now, right, you have confidence. You might not have the highest level of confidence, but you definitely have confidence. Now you're like, oh shit, willows, here we go. I know this. I've been here. Yeah, it's nightmarish, but I know how to handle it. I know how to, right? I know how to navigate. I know how to get out. And that's how hunting has been for me, right? Like the reason that quote is really powerful because it's one of my first turkey hunting stories, and I'm pretty sure I shared it in an earlier episode, is right. Like I was afraid to go turkey hunting. Like I had every excuse in the book, and I just didn't want to go out, and I just kept pushing forward. I was like, nope, still going, still going, still going to do it. And you're not going to have confidence, and you don't need confidence to do something, right? You need courage, and that's all you need. And you just have to, I told one of my other friends, this weekend, I was like, she was complaining about getting stuff done and she didn't have the knowledge, right? The confidence to do it. And I was like, all right, throw yourself a pity party, 30 seconds. You get a 30-second pity party. This applies for anyone, right? You can do 30, 60, or 90 seconds. If it's a really big thing, right, go 90 seconds. But that's it, right? You set a timer. You throw yourself your little pity party about how, I'm not confident and I don't know what I'm doing and I've never done this before and what if this and what if that and yeah, and what my dad, I'm going to quote my dad here. My dad used to say, what if my aunt had a dick? She would be my uncle. And so it's, right. Like it's just, right. Like it's this what if, right? Like what if you could, what if yourself to death? And at the end of your pity party, that's it. No more. It has to end. Your pity party's over, and now you have to move, and you have to act, and you have to go forward with courage, not confidence. You have to go forward with courage, and you have to do the thing that you were just throwing your little pity party about. And no more what ifs, because what if it works out? What if it goes as planned? What if it leads you to the better life that you've always wanted? Right? We're so quick to be like, what if all of the negative things, but we're never on the, well, what if this is the life of my dreams? So with that, pull out your journal, throw yourself a pity party right now, right? Maybe there's something you've been putting off and you're listening to this and you're like, shit, like being accountable, right? Write about your little pity party. Throw yourself a little pity party. What if everything went wrong? And then after that, follow it up with, what if everything went right? What if it worked out? What would the outcome be of X, right? Fill in the blank. If it worked out, if it was the best possible outcome, right? Start using the best possible outcome versus the worst possible outcome. Right? What would life look like if you were courageous? And then move forward and take action. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. You just have to do it. And you're going to fall flat on your face, and you're going to end up in the willows. And you just gotta know that you're going to end up there. Right? Be prepared to know that you're going to end up in the willows. Right? It's the proverbial willows of this podcast, right? You're going to end up in thigh deep water in your running shoes with willows smacking you in the face, right? Like, and you don't want to be there.
You might take a
and
moment.
You can't, right? Yeah, and take your pity party. That's fine. Like, yeah, like I don't know if you did or didn't, right? But maybe you had a pity party.
I took a breath for sure.
Yeah,
I was just like,
right.
All right, well, I have to get out of them. Like, I can't. What am I? I'm not gonna sit here.
Right. What are you gonna do? Sit down, right? Like, you have to leave it, right? So you have your pity party, fine. And I tell, it's one of those things I say in my yoga classes. I don't care what it sounds like. Okay, so like when you're in a pose that sucks, right? Like, and I don't care what it sounds like. I don't care if you're crying. I don't care if you're yelling. I don't care if you're screaming. I don't care if you're cursing me. Just do it. Right? Whatever it sounds like is what it sounds like, right? But you're going to keep doing it. You're going to go forward. You're going to get out of the damn willows. You're going to come out the other side stronger for it. You're going to learn something from it, and then you're going to gain confidence. And so write about all those times that you didn't take the chance and how you're going to take the chance. And use your journal as something to be able to reflect on, right? In a year from now, what is it that you want to do that you've been saying you're going to do? Write that down. Write about some of the actions you're going to take to do it. And in a year, you're going to go back and look at it and realize the person that you've become. And so I'll end with this other thing from Jim Rohn. He's like a I would say a motivational speaker. I always hate that, but he's like a motivational speaker. And I actually just I heard it the other day. I listened to him a lot in my car on like repeat. And he said in one of his talks the other day, and I called my friend about it, and he said, set a goal not to achieve the goal, but about who you will become in achieving that goal. Because it's not what you get in life, it's who you become in life. Mm-hmm. So who do you want to become, and how are you becoming that person? And with that, I'm so glad I got to catch up with you.
Yeah.
So glad I got to hear about your light jaunt through the willows.
Yes.
I'm like imagining like you frolicking through the willows.
I actually, at the end, I literally was saying out loud to my legs, just run. Just start running. Like I would be walking, and I'd be like, just start running. Yeah. Like I was telling, like I didn't want to, and I knew I had to, and I actually was like, I think running actually feels better than walking at this point, and I just would out loud literally talk to my legs and say, just start running, just go, just start running.
That's fantastic. That makes me think of two things: Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill, when she's out of the hospital and she's in the truck and she's looking at her toes, and she's like, wiggle your toe. And like literally she's telling herself, just wiggle your toe. And then the other one is Dory from Finding Nemo, just keep swimming.
Yeah.
And that's life, man. Like just keep running, just run, just go. Just like you have to tell yourself, just run, just keep swimming, wiggle your toe, like whatever it is, like get the message across. Sometimes it sucks, sometimes it's terrible, but you just got to do it.
Oh man.
All right, Bree.
All right.
It's always a pleasure.
Yes. Until next time.
All right. Chat soon. Bye.
Bye. If you want to follow us and our adventures, you can find both of us on Instagram. I'm at Bree Allison. That's BreAllison.
And I am at The Life of Alan Tatone, _ between each word. To check out our offerings, yoga, one-on-one trainings, workshops, retreats, and a recorded library, you can find the info on our website, thehunterandthehippie.com.
If you have questions for the podcast, about the podcast, feedback, suggestions, or just want to say hi, or find ways to work with us, our email is thehunterandthehippie@gmail.com. And don't worry, all of this will be in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hopefully you weren't tuned out.
To the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.